Congratulations, Mr. President.
Joe Biden is now the 46th president of the United States. The same day he was inaugurated, former President Trump ignominiously left the White House for Florida, ending one of the most chaotic tenures in the Oval Office. As his presidency was drawing to a close, Donald Trump looked set to be primarily remembered for his disastrous mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic. But the defining moment of his time as commander-in-chief came when he had just 2 weeks left in office. January 6, 2021. After trying for weeks to overturn the results of the election, Trump's lies that it had been rigged boiled over into insurrection, as his supporters stormed the Capitol building while Congress was certifying Biden's win. It was a violent end to the slow-moving coup attempt that Trump at first encouraged, then praised, and only later distanced himself from.
We will not let them silence your voices. We're not going to let it happen. Not going to let it happen. So go home. We love you. You're very special. We have seen political violence spiral out of control. We have seen too many riots, too many mobs, too many acts of intimidation and destruction. It must stop.
At least 5 people were killed during the riot. A Capitol policeman who was beaten with a fire extinguisher died the next day. Another officer later died by suicide. Several White House staff and cabinet members quit after the violence, as rumors started that Vice President Mike Pence would invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office. Within a week, Trump had become the only president in American history to be impeached twice, this time for inciting sedition.
On this vote, the ayes are 232, the nays are 197. The House demonstrated that no one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. That Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to our country, and that once again, we honored our oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
The new charge was laid a little less than a year after Trump was acquitted for 2 articles of impeachment, one for obstruction and the other for abuse of power, following the revelation that Trump sought dirt on Joe Biden from Ukraine.
Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret. Everyone was informed via email on July 19th, days before the presidential call.
It was inappropriate. It was improper for the president to request and to demand an investigation into a political opponent.
But Democrats fell well short of the 2/3 Senate majority needed to convict. His first impeachment trial behind him, things were looking up for Trump as he hit the campaign trail in February for the 2020 election. While he was stirring up his base, concerns were growing over a flu-like virus that had started in China and was now moving through Europe at a deadly pace. Concerns that the president was quick to shrug off.
By April, in theory, when it gets a little warmer, it miraculously goes away. I hope that's true.
When it became clear that no miracles would be forthcoming and the death toll started to climb, Trump changed tack, refusing to take responsibility for combating the coronavirus and suggesting bizarre, fatal remedies.
I would like you to speak to the medical doctors to see if there's any way that you can apply light and heat to cure. And I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning?
As the pandemic wore on and the death count entered the hundreds of thousands, Trump started to contradict his own medical team.
I disagree with him. Dr. Fauci said don't wear masks, and now he says wear them. And he said numerous things. Don't tell anybody, but let me wait till a little bit after the election.
While Trump's popularity started to plummet, he concentrated on his rallies, defying mask mandates and limits on indoor gatherings. At a Tulsa, Oklahoma rally, only 6,200 people appeared in a stadium with 19,000 seats, and an overflow space was quickly dismantled. With many states enforcing lengthy shutdowns, The number of furloughed and laid off workers pushed unemployment figures to their highest since the Great Depression. The election inching closer, Trump campaigned without presenting a plan for a second term. Then, after months of shrugging off distancing and mask recommendations, the seemingly inevitable happened.
The President of the United States and the First Lady have both tested positive for the coronavirus. It is extraordinary on many different levels.
After a stay at the Walter Reed Medical Center, Trump returned to the White House and victoriously removed his mask. As the number of dead continued to climb, Trump touted his own survival as proof he was bringing the coronavirus under control.
I'm the president. I can't sit in the basement and say, let's wait this thing out. I'm not going to do that. And now I'm immune, they tell me. I'm immune. I could come down and start kissing everybody. I'll kiss every guy, man and woman, man and woman. Look at that guy, how handsome he is. I'll kiss him. Not with a lot of enjoyment, but that's okay.
Going into the election, most polls had Joe Biden solidly ahead, as Democratic get-out-the-vote efforts focused on early and mail-in ballots to minimize the risk of voting during a pandemic. On election night, after leading in initial counts, Trump falsely declared himself the winner before all the votes were tallied.
We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
But when early and mail-in ballots were counted, it quickly became clear that Trump would be consigned to history as a one-term president. Instead of using the final months of his presidency to focus on the coronavirus, now killing around 4,000 people a day, Trump put all his efforts into trying to overturn the election result.
You know, we won Georgia, just so you understand. And we won Florida, and we won a lot of places.
If I lost, I'd be a very gracious loser. If I lost, I would say I lost, and I'd go to Florida, and I'd take it easy, and I'd go around, and I'd say I did a good job. But you can't ever accept when they steal and rig and rob. Can't accept.
Trump lost more than 50 lawsuits that had alleged that Democratic schemes had inflated the Biden vote. Despite the total lack of evidence, Trump's loyalists bought into the fiction.
I think that what the president wants to see is that every legal vote gets counted, and that's what we're walking through right now.
All the votes haven't been counted. We need to make sure the legal process is fully complied with.
He could take military capabilities and he could place them in those states and basically rerun an election in each of those states.
With Trump's legal avenues exhausted, there was one option left. Under the Constitution, the vice president certifies the Electoral College results. The moonshot theory went that Vice President Mike Pence could refuse the certification. It was championed by high-profile senators like Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley. A huge Stop the Steal rally was organized to coincide with proceedings in a bid to force Pence to go along with the plot.
All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify, and we become president, and you are the happiest people.
Now whipped up into a frenzy, as soon as the rally was over, the crowd followed Trump's calls to march on the Capitol.
Trump won! Trump won! Trump won! Trump won!
Police were overwhelmed. Protesters broke into the Senate chamber. Republican and Democratic lawmakers barricaded themselves in their offices. By the end of the day, Trump offered a lukewarm call to the rioters to stop. But the damage was done. It forced Trump for the first time to admit he would not be a two-term president, though he still maintained the election was rigged. Before the week was out, he was permanently banned from Twitter, a development that reportedly stung more than the growing calls for impeachment. Calls that had bipartisan support. 7 days after the riot, the House of Representatives voted to impeach the president for a second time.
Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to our country.
As Trump readies himself for his second trial, Biden is preparing a raft of executive actions, including ending the Muslim travel ban, reuniting separated migrant families, and a return to the Paris Climate Agreement, as he seeks to move the country on from his predecessor's toxic legacy.